Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce the Horizon EU-funded SIMPATHIC project to you. SIMPATHIC stands for Accelerating Drug Repurposing for Rare Neurological, Neurometabolic, Neuromuscular Disorders, Sharing Common Molecular Pathways and Clinical Symptoms. And I coordinate this project with Professor Clara van Karnebeek from the Amsterdam University Medical Center. So in SIMPATHIC, we are trying to move away from the one drug, one rare disease concept and make larger groups of rare disease patients benefit from repurposed drugs by actually focusing on these shared molecular etiologies that were already introduced before, but are also in this very nice paper from the ERDERC task force. But on top of that, we are also looking at the connection between the molecular mechanisms and the clinical symptoms, because we realize that even when you are diagnosed with one of the 9 disorders that we are studying, the clinical symptoms may be very different within these patient groups, and there are sometimes more similarities between patients with different diagnoses than within a diagnosed group. And actually, we are targeting clinical symptoms like fatigue, movement disorders, and cognitive impairment, and try to find a parallel molecular phenotype in relevant cell types like the neurons. For example, focusing on the connection between fatigue and mitochondrial dysfunction, or cognitive impairment and altered synaptic transmission. Well, the whole goal of the project is to accelerate the drug repurposing pathway, and we see several accelerators there. But here on the bottom is the essence here, that we select patients based on their clinical symptoms and the overlapping molecular pathways that we find in these patients. Furthermore, do AI-empowered drug screens, and then also include in a trial, in a basket trial, patients with different type of diagnosis but overlapping clinical symptoms. And the other big accelerators that we see, but they were already mentioned before during the day, is actually the big table, the co-creation table with multiple stakeholders and empowering patient organizations to also drive these drug repurposing pathways. So summarizing here, the major accelerators, so putting the patient perspective and the priorities in all relevant steps of the drug repurposing pathway, but then also doing drug development in parallel for multiple diseases at the same time, both in the in vitro part and in the clinical development. And with reusable exploitation and patient access models, where we actually also will make use of the target product profile that may be introduced later in this meeting. Focusing on the in vitro drug screens, we are quite unique in doing these drug screens in a relevant cell type that we believe can be very much standardized, the NGN2-induced neurons derived from induced pluripotent stem cells. And we have some assays, some imaging-based assays and biomarker-based assays that we can standardize for these high-throughput screens. The parallel clinical development will be done in what we call basket trials, and in these baskets we will include patients with different diagnoses, as said before, and we have a design in mind where we do a randomized controlled trial, but in a crossover design where sometimes patients first receive the drug or the placebo and then alternate. More on this clinical trial design tomorrow in the talk by Joanna Inethout. So the project specifics, SIMPATHIC is funded with 9 million euros from the European Union, but also with 400,000 Canadian dollars. We started in July 2023, and the project will last for 5 years. We have 20 partners involved, patient organizations, university medical centers, but also IATRIS as the European infrastructure for translational medicine, and SMEs. And we have a multi-stakeholder advisory board to help us create the table as large as possible. And with that, I would like to end. You can connect to us, and I'm happy to talk to you about the project later in this meeting. Thank you.